Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Tear Talk. As I was scrolling through my feed, I came up with another case that I wanted to share. It's the murder of Bre'Yon Wells, basically when trust becomes tragedy. You know, as a parent, you have to be very careful with your children because sometimes the worst predators put themselves in positions to be trusted just to get to your children. It's the scariest thing, but it's the truth. They're predators. They know how to manipulate. They know how to maneuver. They know how to build trust. And next thing you know, they come after your children. So I want to show you this news clipping from the media here. Let me just play this video to get you a little familiar with this case before we give it a breakdown.
An update now on a story we brought you last night. A 21-year-old man named Nicco Cotton is connected to Monday's death of 2-year-old Bre'Yon Wells in the Mark Twain neighborhood, has turned himself into police. The boy's death was ruled a homicide after medical examiners found evidence the child was strangled. Police are now saying the suspect is charged with sexual abuse of that child. The child's family held a balloon release in his honor earlier tonight.
If he had never had a bad day. Bre'Yon was the light of all of our lives, and he will greatly be missed, and we want to thank you all for your support.
In addition to the sexual abuse charges, the man is also being charged with second-degree murder. The investigation is ongoing.
So guys, let me just, I believe that was Bianca Wells in that video towards the end. So Bianca Wells was rebuilding her life. She had gone from homelessness to securing an apartment and landing a job at Raising Cane's for a young single mother in St. Louis. This represented hard-won progress, a foundation on which to build a future for herself and her 2-year-old son, Bre'Yon. She had recently suffered a setback when she totaled her car, but she was saving for another. Bre'Yon's father was incarcerated, leaving Wells to navigate parenthood largely alone. Yet she persisted, driven by love for her son and determination to create stability. And sadly, guys, this story right here, the struggle of a single mom, this is not something that's unique to Bianca. This is a story that's happening across our nation. There's a quote from Bianca Wells. "My baby was so happy. He was so loving. He loved everybody and everything. He just wanted to be a kid and enjoy life." And I thought that's what he was doing. I actually have a picture of Bre'Yon. Let me just show you this picture. Beautiful boy. There he is. On weekends, Bianca, she would drop Bre'Yon off with her godmother so she could work. The child became part of an extended family network, people who knew him, loved him, and watched him grow. But on Monday, October 27, 2025, Wells made a decision that would shatter her world. She left Bre'Yon in the care of 21-year-old Nicco Cotton. Let me show you who he is. Even though you saw him in the video, let's show him again. Oh, man. It's like always, it gets worse, this news. It really does. Let me show you. Don't want to. Here you go. This is Nicco Cotton, 21-year-old. All right. So the day everything changed. So around 10:40 p.m. on October 27th, St. Louis Metropolitan Police received 2 emergency calls. First from the 4900 block of Thekla, then regarding an unresponsive 2-year-old near Interstate 70 and St. Louis Avenue, approximately 5 miles away. Bre'Yon Wells was rushed to SSM Health Cardinal Glennon Children's Hospital, where medical staff encountered injuries that shocked even seasoned trauma physicians. Doctors determined his injuries were consistent with abuse, multiple internal and asphyxial injuries, including a lacerated liver and extensive evidence of sexual assault. The medical examiner's office found evidence of strangulation along with other traumatic injuries and declared the death a homicide. The toddler was pronounced dead at the hospital. Then you get the confession. Cotton turned himself in on Thursday, October 31st, 4 days after the murder. During questioning, he made admissions that would form the basis of the criminal charges against him. According to court documents, Cotton confessed to sexually assaulting and strangling 2-year-old Bre'Yon Wells. The confession, combined with the medical evidence, painted an unmistakable picture of what had transpired during those hours when the child was in his care. Prosecutors charged Cotton with second-degree murder, first-degree forcible sodomy, statutory sodomy of a person less than 12 years old, and abuse of a child resulting in death. He's being held at the St. Louis City Justice Center without bond. Now, guys, it doesn't know who made those 2 emergency calls, but my question here was, why only second-degree murder? Why not first-degree murder? So in Missouri, the difference between first-degree and second-degree murder comes down to intent and premeditation, the mental state of the killer before the act. So first-degree murder, which is RSMO 565.020, to charge someone with first-degree murder, prosecutors must prove deliberation or deliberate. That's the suspect planned or reflected before killing, and premeditation. The decision to kill was made ahead of time, even if just minutes before. And then 3, the act was willful and intentional. It's reserved for killings that are clearly planned, like lying in wait, using deceit, or taking steps that show forethought. Penalty is life without parole or death. Then you have second-degree murder, and that's under 565.021 RSMO. Second-degree murder in Missouri applies when the person intentionally kills another but without prior deliberation, or the death occurs during the commission of another felony like sexual assault or child abuse. And that's where this will fall. In Cotton's case, the murder likely occurred in the course of committing another felony, the sexual assault and child abuse. That makes it felony murder, which Missouri law categorizes as second degree, not first. Penalty 10 to 30 years of life in prison. Funny thing is, how do you know he didn't plan to build that connection with the mom so he could get to the child? In that case, wouldn't that be premeditated? Because predators put themselves in these positions. So they're planned, they're strategic. So why prosecutors chose this route? There's no clear evidence Cotton planned to kill Bre'Yon in advance. So I guess it's more about the sexual assault. The killing appears to have occurred during or after the sexual assault, meaning it was part of the felony event, not a premeditated act. Charging second-degree felony murder ensures prosecutors don't have to prove premeditation, only that Bre'Yon died as a result of Cotton's intentional criminal conduct. This approach reduces the risk of a lesser conviction or acquittal if a jury doubts premeditation but still believes he caused the child's death. So I get it. Cotton's alleged assault and strangulation of Bre'Yon fits the felony murder rule, a second-degree charge that still carries a potential life sentence. I mean, there's nothing this person can ever give back to society, Cotton. So it's actually good that at least we can get at least the second degree, which could still lead to life in prison. So now we have the mother's anguish. Community questions. At a memorial gathering at Bre'Yon's South City preschool, family, teachers, and classmates released blue and white balloons in the sky. Ritual of grief for a life that barely began. Bianca Wells spoke through tears. She said, "I feel like my baby was put in positions he shouldn't have been in because his mom didn't have much support in life and no one to be there for her. Support your family, be there for them, because you could be like me and have nothing." I think that this is an extremely powerful statement. I really do believe it takes a community to raise a child. Watching all these videos that we've done, it truly does take a community to raise a child. And there's a lot of mothers who are going through this right now that are probably forced to make decisions that they don't want to because they have to be that sole provider. So her words reveal not just grief, but a deeper systemic reality. The isolation many single parents face, the impossible choices made when childcare options are limited, and the vulnerability that poverty creates. Her godmother, who had helped care for Bre'Yon on weekends, said she had never met Cotton, but knew some of his family through her work in St. Louis public schools. She urged people to show grace. Don't be so quick to judge. You don't know the situation. We need love and we need prayers. I think what a godmother means to that is we're not judging the mother here. we're not judging the mother here. At the end of the day, sometimes we get so lost in these discussions that we just want to make sense of it all. And sometimes we don't realize in our effort to do that, we wind up shifting blame because maybe it's easier. Maybe I can't relate to the monster and understand how a monster could do that, but then I can attack the mother for leaving the child with that individual. No. At the end of the day, the person that is responsible for this, Nicco Cotton, that's the one, not the mom. That's where our focus needs to go. And we hope that the justice system does what is right here. Pastor Rodney Weekly of North City Church of Christ, located near one of the crime scenes locations, expressed community heartbreak. An innocent child, this is what he says, just to hear something like this is just so sad. My heart goes out to that child, his family, our neighborhood, and our community. So what does justice look like? When asked what would bring her peace, Wells said, when I could look at him in the eyes and know that he's going to sit behind a cell for the rest of his life, I'll breathe. In Missouri, the charges Cotton faced carry severe penalties. Second-degree murder, that's 10 to 30 years of life imprisonment. First-degree forcible sodomy, that's life imprisonment or minimum 5 years. Statutory sodomy, child under 12, life imprisonment or minimum 5 years. Child abuse resulting in death, 10 to 30 years or life imprisonment. Given the nature of the crimes, particularly the sexual assault of a toddler, Cotton faces the likelihood of multiple life sentences running consecutively. In the Missouri correctional system, offenders convicted of crimes against children are typically placed in protective custody due to extreme hostility from other inmates. As of November 2025, Cotton remains in custody awaiting trial. No plea has been entered and no trial date has been set. Here's some of the unanswered questions. Despite the confession and charges, critical questions remain. Of course, why did this happen? There's no public record of Cotton having a history of violence, sexual offenses, or mental health crisis. What drives a 21-year-old to commit such a heinous act against a defenseless child remains unexplained. Was this opportunistic predation, a psychotic break, or the manifestation of a hidden paraphilia? Now, I would be very interested in his family dynamic. Does he have siblings? I mean, are we concerned that, this may not have been his first act? This could have been just an escalation of prior acts. So I would definitely be very interested in other young children that he has been next to, because again, these are young kids that may not be able to voice their concerns. Doing this to a 2-year-old, one of the things I think is, besides the fact that they're very vulnerable, is they can't really communicate. It's experts that can see, changes in the way that child used to be in their prior behaviors, and they also know how to read children who are going through these types of concerns. And I don't know how many times he was left with Bre'Yon, but was this the first assault, or could it have been many? Could we have missed something? But again, remember, these predators, that's what they do. They earn positions of trust, and they get into your head. And sometimes it's hard for us to admit it, because then we know that we're the ones that put our children at risk. But in this case here, the mother is stepping up. She's stepping up. And I think the impact here is, what are we doing here for our single mothers? How are we showing support? What can we do? Again, it does take a community to raise a child. So there's no public record of Cotton. Okay, we did that. Were there warning signs that anyone in Cotton's life noticed concerning behaviors, inappropriate comments, boundary violations, or fascinations with children? Or did he successfully conceal his impulses until that fatal day? What was the nature of his relationship with Wells? So reports describe Cotton as either her boyfriend or close friend. Understand the depth and duration of that relationship may provide context for why Wells felt comfortable entrusting her son to him, in case anybody has that question. What systemic failures contributed? So Wells herself acknowledged her lack of support systems. Did she have access to affordable, safe childcare? Were there community resources available that might have prevented this tragedy? Or was she, like countless working single mothers, forced to make the best of limited options? So this is why we do this show, right? To see what areas we can address. From a forensic standpoint, this is what I did research on. This case represents a convergence of two of the most disturbing categories of violent crime: sexual homicide of a child. It's two: sexual homicide of a child, sex and murder. Basically, statistically rare but psychologically devastating. Research indicates these offenders often exhibit sexual deviance with an attraction to violence, control, and the vulnerability of victims, impulsivity and poor emotional regulation, particularly under stress, a sense of entitlement over the victim's body and autonomy, and cognitive distortions that allow them to minimize or rationalize their actions. Yeah, because to them, the child is an object. It's an object that they can completely own and do whatever they want with. There's just no empathy here. To do that to a child that's so vulnerable, that there's just no empathy here. This is someone that in my mind cannot be rehabilitated. Cotton's decision to turn himself in may indicate immediate remorse or panic following the realization of what he had done, recognition that escape was impossible given the medical evidence, or an attempt to shape the narrative or gain leniency through cooperation. I think it's the attempt to shape the narrative. And I also think maybe there could be remorse or panic. I'd be very interested in who made the emergency calls. Because maybe I'm going to do another perspective. Maybe it wasn't supposed to go that far. Maybe in his whack mind, it was going to be sexual, but then unfortunately he hurt the child. And then now he has a dead baby, or a baby that is could die. So what does he do? Just maybe to protect himself from being charged with murder, he makes the phone calls while he's kind of on the run a little bit, see where it's the best bet to, dispose of the baby so he can take off and maybe get the baby some care. So I'll be interested to see if he's the one that made the phone call. And maybe there could be some conflict, but I still think it's a predator because he's the conflict may be the fact that he didn't want to kill the baby, but he wanted to sexually assault the baby. So the conflict may come where he didn't, he thought maybe he could sexually assault the baby and no one ever know about it. But then he went too far. And then now this is the end result. So either way, I wouldn't think it's remorse or panic, because remorse has to have some level of guilt. Maybe panic, sorry, but I don't think it's remorse because remorse has to connect to some level of guilt. And people like that don't feel guilt. They don't feel that level of empathy like we would feel. So I think it would be more of just a panic because he did it too far. He went too far. And then it could be a way to attempt the narrative, to shape the narrative. However, the brutality of the act, particularly the combination of sexual assault and strangulation, suggests a level of violence that is difficult to reconcile with genuine remorse. The case forces uncomfortable conversations. So for parents, about the balance between trust and vigilance and the impossible burden placed on those without resources or support. For law enforcement, about detecting predators who operate within circles of trust rather than as strangers in the dark. And for society, about how we fail vulnerable families and how that failure creates opportunities for monsters. Guys, I like when we put some ownership and stuff like this that happens towards the community, so we all get together and see what we can do more. Again, it's an ownership that we do take, because in the end, let's create an impact. So I think it's good for us to embrace these concerns so we can get more motivated or maybe even inspired to do something different so this doesn't happen again. I mean, do we need to look at how single mothers are supported? Are we doing enough? Pastor Weekly put it plainly, unfortunately, things like this are going to continue to happen until we hold people accountable. We must come together as a neighborhood and as a community. So in memory, Bianca Wells said her only comfort now is knowing Bre'Yon was loved and that he is in a better place with her father, the child's grandfather who has passed before him. Bre'Yon Wells was 2 years old. He's loved life, brought joy to everyone who knew him, and he deserved far better than the hand he was dealt. So the murder of Bre'Yon Wells is not just a crime story. It's a mirror held up to society, reflecting our failures to support struggling families, to identify and intervene with dangerous individuals, and to protect the most vulnerable among us. It's also a stark reminder that evil does not always announce itself with red flags and warning signs. Sometimes it wears the face of someone you trust. And that's the worst part, Wells said. Felt like my baby was safe, he was okay, and looked after, and he wasn't. Those words will echo long after the trial concludes and the cell doors close behind Nicco Cotton, because for Bianca Wells, there is no sentence severe enough, no justice complete enough to bring back the child who loved everybody and just wanted to enjoy life. So rest in peace, Bre'Yon Wells. October 2023 to October 2027. Sorry. Rest in peace, Bre'Yon Wells. October of 2023 to October 27th of 2025. As you know, this case remains under active prosecution, so I will try to provide updates as we move through the legal process. But just another horrible story. Hey guys, if you like the content, please, I have a buy me a coffee. There's a description to that in the link, as well as on my page on YouTube. Every little bit helps. But as always, guys, stay safe.